In the past, Sega has tried to please retro Sonic fans by making titles that were similar to the Genesis games, but their attempts to recapture the Genesis experience have historically not worked out. So with Sonic Mania, they hired Christian Whitehead, and sure enough, this game turned out to be great. But without them being involved with Sonic Superstars, a lot of people were nervous about how this one would turn out. Is this one worth checking out, or is it mediocre like Sega's other attempts? Well, let's take a look. What's going on, guys? It's Podrez coming at you with another video. Alright, so we're going to be looking at Sonic Superstars today. Yep, that's what it's called. Alright, so if you've seen a couple of my videos and you like what I do, hit that subscribe button right there. We hit 10,000 recently. Thank you so much for making that happen. Now, let's go further. I still don't have a sub goal yet, by the way. I also haven't plugged my store in a while, so if you haven't already, check out shop.podrez.net. I've got coffee mugs, t-shirts, and more. Anyway, let's talk about Sonic Superstars. In the past, Sega has tried to please retro Sonic fans by making titles that were similar to the Genesis games. One of their attempts was Sonic 4. Graphically, this game looks great, and the music is some of the best in the series. The game is playable, but there's some issues. The physics are notably bad, with Sonic stopping on a dime without any momentum, and Sonic literally standing at a 90-degree angle. What happened? The game tries to replicate the originals a little too much, with pretty much every stage being inspired by Sonic 1 and 2. Later on, Episode 2, which has Tails in it, was released. This one has way better graphics, and it feels more like the Genesis games. The graphics are actually in 2.5D as well, unlike Episode 1. These are okay games, and Episode 2 is definitely way better, but there's still nothing special. Later on, we got Sonic Mania. This one's more like the Genesis games with the 2D cartoony graphics. Christian Whitehead really went the extra mile with this title. The physics feel exactly like the originals. For the first time, I feel like I'm getting the original Sonic experience here. The graphics are really nice and colorful, the music is excellent, and there's some completely original stages in here. This is a far better game than Sonic 4, but there's one piece of criticism I want to give. Even though there's some original stages, the game does rehash a lot of the stages from the original Sonic games. The game feels more like a remake of the classic Sonic games rather than its own standout title. Despite that though, this is a fantastic game. So with the success of Sonic Mania, Sega expressed interest in releasing a sequel to it. However, a 2D Sonic game was out of the question because Sega thought fans would consider it a rehash. Plus, making a 2D title that's very similar to the Genesis games only pleases the retro audience. Sega wanted the next game to be in 2.5D, which would cover a wider audience. So, in June of 2023, Sega announced Sonic Superstars, which was the end result. It was revealed that Christian Whitehead and the team behind Sonic Mania would have nothing to do with this game, which made some people nervous. Instead, Sonic Team and Artist would co-develop the game. Artist isn't a well-known company. Their most popular game is probably Yoshi's New Island. Since they worked with Nintendo previously, maybe this company can be trusted, but not having Christian Whitehead involved is a disappointment. Sonic Superstars was released on October 17th, a little over 2 weeks ago. Is this going to be another mediocre title like Sonic 4, or are we going to get something good here? Well, I got it right here, so let's give it a try. The first comment I wanted to make is that the animated cutscenes look amazing. They look just like the ones from Sonic Mania and Sonic Origins, which is a big compliment. The game brings back Fang, who was originally from Sonic Triple Trouble. Really cool that they're paying homage to the older games. It's actually interesting that he's working with Dr. Eggman this time, because in Sonic Triple Trouble, they had nothing to do with each other. They also introduce a new character named Trip, who starts out as an antagonist, but we find out shortly after she's not much of one. The ability to play as Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails was expected, but it's cool that they added Amy in here too. Now, I've mentioned this before, but I liked Amy in Sonic Advance because she was a more difficult character to play as. She's unable to curl up into a ball, and she's very slow, but she can jump higher than the other characters, and her hitbox allows for more reach. Playing as Amy is like playing the game on a harder difficulty, which I like. We'll talk more about Amy later. Upon starting the game, I'm actually surprised at how well done the physics are. It feels very close to the Genesis games, which is surprising for a 2.5D Sonic game. If you jump while moving uphill, your character will jump much higher, which is very accurate to the original games. Sonic Mania got the physics right as well, but that was made by Christian Whitehead. Without them being involved with Sonic Superstars, I was worried about this, but thankfully Sonic Team and Artist got it mostly right. There are some minor inaccuracies though. When playing as Knuckles, using your gliding ability on enemies doesn't propel you upwards very high. In the 16-bit games, you would ascend up very far, so this is a minor setback. Also as Knuckles, when you glide, you're supposed to gradually increase in speed, but in Superstars, it doesn't happen. But these are all nitpicks, and I do gotta give them credit for getting the physics 95% correct. I also want to talk about the presentation. The game looks really incredible. The character designs look great, and the graphics have a lot of variety. Some of the stages might take some minor inspiration from older Sonic games, but they each have their own spin on them and they feel like brand new stages rather than just rehashes. The entire game in general feels like its own title rather than just a copycat of the previous games, and that's what I've been looking for. One feature I really like is that all the characters share the same save file, so if you want to switch to a different character, you'll still have the emeralds you collected as the previous character and you'll still pick up on the last stage you left off on. This is huge because in older Sonic titles, you couldn't switch characters in the middle of the game, you had to start a new save file. It's nice that I don't have to collect the Chaos Emeralds and beat the game 4 times to unlock everything. The special stages are very unique. I thought they were going to recycle one of the special stages from the older Sonic titles, but they came up with something completely different. Here, the emeralds are moving away from you and you must swing over to it before the time runs out. All around you are these floating objects, and when the green crosshair shows up, you can swing on it. It's hard to come up with a strategy because you never know which object the game will automatically let you swing to, so it almost feels luck-based. Not my favorite, but I'm glad they came up with something different. The special stages from Sonic 1 also make an appearance, and it plays well, but there's no incentive to play these outside of collecting coins. Honestly, I usually skip these. Speaking of the Chaos Emeralds, each one you collect will grant you a new ability that you can use temporarily in the game. I get what they were trying to do. In the original Genesis titles, collecting all the emeralds would make you super, but each one individually did absolutely nothing. So it's almost like there was very little incentive to collect them. But here, the game rewards you for each one you collect, and I actually like that. With that said, I've never used any of the extra abilities in the game, I just never had a reason to. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I just don't care for these extra abilities, but I get what Sega was going for and I respect it. Let's talk about some of the characters' abilities. Obviously Tails can fly and Knuckles can climb, no complaints there. Sonic retains his drop dash ability that originated from Mania. This is a small speed boost that you get when you land. I get they're trying to make Sonic stand out as a character because in a lot of previous games, there was almost no advantage to using him over Tails or Knuckles. But drop dash isn't really anything that special, and it's not a decisive reason to pick Sonic. Alright, let's talk about Amy now. I'm 50-50 on what they did with her. They gave her a double jump ability, which is similar to what she had in Sonic Advance, so that's a great addition, but she's able to curl up into a ball and she can spin dash, which are not abilities that Amy normally has. She controls just like she did in Sonic Origins Plus, except now she has the ability to double jump. So this is an improvement over that game, but I still wish they kept her like she was in Sonic Advance. She was more difficult to play in that title, but I liked that. Her inability to curl up into a ball is what made her Amy, and it's weird that they've been changing that in later Sonic titles. One thing I do like about the characters is that some acts require you to play as a certain character, and I think that's a great way to force the player to try some of the other characters. If you're stubborn and only like playing as either Sonic or Tails, the game will motivate you to try something new. So let's talk about the price. I'm not sure how I feel about the $60 price tag. Sonic Mania was $20 when it came out, although it wasn't a physical release. $60 is how much a high-end game like Smash Bros. Or Zelda would cost. I'm not discounting the hard work that Sega and Artem put into this game, but it feels too small of a game to be priced so high. In my opinion, it needs to go down. So anyway, with all this said, do I recommend picking up this game? I'm honestly surprised at how well this plays considering it's in 2.5D and Sega's poor track record. They got the physics mostly right, and they did a good job capturing the feel of the Genesis games. The game definitely feels like its own standout title and not a rehash, which is something that Mania didn't quite do as effectively. With that said, the special stages aren't all that special, I don't like what they did with Amy, and the game is overpriced for what it is. Despite that though, this game really proves that Sega doesn't need to rely on Christian Whitehead to make a great classic Sonic game. Hey, I just wanted to thank you so much for watching this video. If you made it this far, hit that like button. If you enjoy this type of content, hit the subscribe button for more content. Both of these things really help the channel grow. If you have anything to share, feel free to leave a comment. I read every single comment on this channel, and I'm pretty good at replying back. Anyway, have a good one.